Thank you very much. Wow. After here, that how can say curriculum vitae is like as the snap of Will Will Smith. After that, is very difficult continuous to talk about because we with the time of the when crossing the time, we are the the life give you surprises, and for me always is very happy moment to share with everybody. And if the publicity of this uh, premium, I don't know how can say premium prices, the condition to do, I receive that with honor because it's a method to be closer. The first, the second thing for me is say sorry for my bad English. I only studied 2 months more than 15 years ago, and that's all my language. But it's not a joke; it's a effort try to be closer to. And saying this is for me a real honor to be here. I will try to share with you some experience. Normally, I try to explain is more important the uh, than how can say erudition. Can say erudition in English. More important than the erudition is the intelligence, because today John Google, nobody can be more erudite than John Google because John Google knows everything. That's why uh, all the time we are we make the efforts to work out of the box, trying to explain. We need to produce new tools to give to our society new opportunities. And that is important for us. We have more or less some recognition, uh, like expert to do what we don't know how to do. That is a synthesis of the or the definition about the researcher, the role of the researcher, expert to do what we don't know how to do. But in the academy, in the academy, we need to explain in another sense. Uh, some years ago, my friend Junya Ishigami made some exposition in Paris nominated freeing and freeing spaces or something like this. Hmm, it's a beautiful name, freeing. But for me, the space always be free. And but we have some others relation around the idea of, of freeing. For example, it's very interesting. One of the most important tales in South America, in the River Plate, where we live, is the some tales made by Jorge Luis Borges. And Jorge Luis Borges, in a particular tale named El Aleph, the Aleph, they invent some particular condition. Uh, he said he took, he made a surgery, a cardiac surgery, cardiac operation. It's good that, okay. And keep all of the ordinary function of the heart and put all of this in a sphere down an stair in a neighborhood in the periphery of Buenos Aires. And they named this sphere El Aleph. And what means El Aleph? Because he defined El Aleph saying it's a place where all the places are and all the times are too. The single place where this happened was in the heart, because in the heart we have all the remembers and even all the times living in down inside of heart. But when he touch all of the take all of this and put outside, they only live in the middle of our breath a biologic bomb to uh, to introduce in our veins the blood necessary to live. But all the other ideas normally vinculate with the heart condition, they put in the aleph. And for me, in that moment, appeared an extraordinary idea, because one of the normal sense for us is the linear sense of the time, all the time and all the places in one single aleph. And the sense of the time, past, present, and future, is a non-quebrable, breakable uh, circumstance, because, but really, we only have the past. We only have the past, because present disappear in this instant. Future can be no appear. And the past always staying changing. And what we need is break the sense of the past to have a, a close condition, a close relation with the past, to again rethinking about the past and give new opportunities of in the past for the future. We only have past. We only have the opportunity to transform our past, to transform our future. And freeing the time, freeing the past, we can be vinculated with everything in another way. Not only to be an erudite in terms of these many protocol of the architecture, these works of the master, etc., to repeat exactly what they think or what they talk about, uh, appear in each interpretation of that moment opportunity to rethink everything and to promote new opportunities for the future. Let me show you some uh, ideas. We can close the light, because it's better without light. That's why everybody can sleep one big siesta with this temperature and the rain, etc., etc. Okay, everybody knows this work, but for me, this work is sorry. This work is incredible, because everybody knows the Ville Savoie, and 2 years ago I was here in this window. My daughter and my sons, my two daughters, my sons, and all my close family carry me to the Ville Savoie to see for first time of the Ville Savoie. But for me was an incredible moment. Finally appeared there, the Ville Savoie for me, etc. And when I remember this picture in particular, for first time, I start to understand, wow, see here, how can use the bricks facing up, and how can use small bricks, they give inertia, curve the wall. And even here, you can see all the, wow, sorry for the, all the bricks like this, working facing up, and how can reduce the inertia of the wall and make some horizontal element here to redefine the structure and to support the structure. And in a moment, I I be seated in that place, in that window in particular, and only in my head, I start to understand the espesor, how can I say espesor in English? Thickness. The thickness of the white of the wall. And I make this movement. And again, wow, there are not bricks, there are pieces of stone. There are sillería. How can I say sillería in English? It's a cube of stone manipulated and transferred, and that's why it's not the thick of one brick. It's more or less a gross piece of stone. But in my interpretation, when I saw that picture, of course, Le Corbusier is fantastic. He reduced all the quantity of material using the levelest, can say that? The more level, the more reduces, the more reduced quantity of material to resolve the problem of the wall. Fantastic. Even if you see in the Errázuriz house, oh, I don't know why, okay, appear the horizontal. When he have more weight here, he reduced the distance of the dintel, I don't know, the small beam over the dintel. And when he have less weight here, they can open more. And that's why with all that ideas, with all that bad interpretation, because 2 years ago, I discovered was absolutely different things. In the middle of Asunción, in a common lot, how can I say lot? A common lot, I built my office. And of course, I use to reduce the cost because I rent the lot and I need to reduce the cost of the construction. And that's why I use less quantity of bricks, facing up the bricks and and normally if you understand, wow, it's impossible, right? You can see here, here, no, have some problem. Okay, normally, if you understand the section of a house, and you understand the wall is not a closement, it's the structural part of the house. You need to, every single hole, what you make in that wall is a debilitation, can say debilitation of the structure. And if you imagine a very skinny wall made by 4 centimeters weight, ancho, thick, and appear, if you charge here, appear a flexo compression moment here in the middle, and the worst thing is make a hole here in the middle, because your structure is worse. But if you imagine this is not a window, this is a central beam, and in that central beam you reinforce the structure, and then you take off all the material inside of that horizontal beam. This is not a fenêtre à longueur. This is not a horizontal window. This is a central beam. It's the core of the wall. And with that element, you establish, I imagine that's what Le Corbusier made in the Ville-Savoie. But that's not true. But through this, how can I say error? With this mistake of interpretation, I start a process of rethinking things in architecture, trying to use the construction system and the vinculo and the link with the material, the structure, the space, etc., all together working with a purpose. And that's why, if you remember you can see here more weight for the roof and you can see less space between one and another small here. And without weight here, I can open more here, etc. All the principles, all what I see. I live in a very poor country in the middle of South America without libraries, without well teachers, etc., etc. Everything I need to invent reading. At the same time, I have the book in my hand and I have another book operating in my brain and in my soul, freeing the time, reusing, and how can I say, refounded, reencontrar, how can I say reencontrar, refining opportunity in the past to make the future, to make some kind of future, reducing because we only have two items in a budget of architecture. One is the cost of the material, and two is the cost of the labors to make the construction. If you reduce the quantity of material to satisfy the same needs of the society, you are in a path in front of. In a planet with limited resources, we must reduce the quantity of material because we still, at today, we don't know how can we duplicate the planet and the sorry. Okay, yeah, it's you understand. In the interior of the cabinet of this office, I use low density wood to recover everything, and the central beam is exactly in the height of the tables, and everybody working in that place see the garden, and who is standing up is don't see that don't have that view. And other of the elements of Le Corbusier start to make many studies about proportion, section, etc., etc. And all his first drawings and his first works, he manifiesta, he showed for everybody the importance of that scene. You can see how the house studio for Osenfan, etc., and how can work, even the size of the, how can the red and blue modular system working inside of a diagram, and he used and he invented, for example, the case of the Brisolet, and this is a Brisolet for the north, for France. And when he worked in South America, he used a very tiny enclosed Brisolet because the power of the sun and the needs of wind, etc., they need to be opened, but at the same time covered, because the sun can kill you. And all of that elements, they are based in industrial production. And the industrial production is only understanding the thing of how can reduce the time to produce and how can you use less quantity of material. Exactly what I say. And okay, we can make some brisolets, and we can prefabricate walls by the ground, and then we can lift up the wall, and using that panels, we can make some many compositions. The problem of this is because you have only 4 centimeters. And if you imagine every single line here is a concrete line, and you can use armed concrete inside of this panel, I have more or less 1 meter and 93 centimeters. That's why that panel have more or less 2 meters and 50 centimeters. And of course, when we lift up the panel, the panel starts to vibrating like a nirvana. It's in shock. And oh, this is not good for a construction because it's so unstable. But unstable, can say, it's not, ¿cómo se dice inestable? Unstable, can say unstable. Yes, okay. That's why, imagine if I put some metal reinforcement in the middle of the wall, the inertia of the panel is so tiny, don't work the structure of the panel, and you can break the panel even having metal reinforcements in the middle. But if I put not only facing up bricks here, I can put some facing up brick here and other maybe inertia with the same material. I can make some panels of more than 3 meters, 2 meters, and I can fabric this over the ground, and I can start to produce lines and lines, every single, because it's normally everybody imagine the brick and strong piece of artificial stone. But in Paraguay, for many circumstances, it's not the time to reveal that. You can take a brick over the table and you can say, ha! And the brick broke. because to reduce the weight of the bricks, the artisan produce clay with chispas, ¿cómo se dice? Chispas, sparks of wood, and when cook the bricks, appear some holes inside and is too light but they have exactly the same condition to resist many things if you understand the capacity of that. It's not a condition to, how can say, cuando, how we how can say that? For example, the people tall like me, they are so stupid, something like this. Discrimination. Oh, sorry. It's a kind of because you can refuse the possibility of the capacity of the bricks because that is only a discrimination process. But if you understand the capacity of your bricks and what your brick can do, you can resolve everything with that. And for make prefabricated elements and changing all the dimension and use the diagram for produce exactly and change the view of things, and you can work and make more or less 6 meter high of bristle only carry his own weight, etc. You are making new opportunities for ancient material. Remember, the brick have more than 3,000 years old of protocols to know exactly how can you use in a very well condition that material. And everybody can say, oh, no, this is a horrible, you can do that. And produce renovation way to think in a protocol with 3,000 years old is a genuine effort to work outside of the box. And working with that, you break the sense of the time because you start with making a cabanon with wood, and then you can take some pieces of stone, and then you can make bricks, and then you can make concrete armament, and then you can use steel, and then you can recover with platinum. No, it's not platinum. It's the surfaces what use frangeli, uh, titanium, etc., etc. And that's the sense of the material. But how can you, ancient material with incredible capacity, even for today, produce that opportunity? You need to break the sense of uh, time. You need to break and free the past for give new opportunities for the materials. when I, sorry, I don't loud for the master we can, but I can only explain you the first time. I am an old man, and and my first computer arrived to my office around when I was uh, 38 years old, more or less, and many years after, sorry, and many years after, they start to invite me to make conferences and courses in many universities around. And I really want to use the beautiful video of Louis Kahn saying, hey, Brick, what do you want? And the Brick say, I want to be an art. Remember, but the sound of my computer are so ugly, and I hear, hey, Brick, and the bricks say, I want to be an orange, an orange. And all the time I was thinking, why a brick want to be an orange? To make juice or something like But this is the sense of, it's a new reinterpretation, or it's a new opportunity to rethink the arc. In this case, I imagine one structure made by two variable beams vinculating. If I can make the beam here working like this and reduce like this and work. You can see, and then I use the arc like this and like this to. But this arc in particular is a hanging arc. Is an arc who repeat and copy all the structure, and that's why it's an arc working on traction. Again, is a path over the box. You can see there is the two variable beams. The transversal beams are reduced in the middle because have two cantilevers, voladizos, and the arc is only copy the reduce of the section here, because with the cantilever we can do that kind of results. And using these variable beams and these variable beams, I can make a totally open space in the basement. I use, of course, the non-industrial, how can I say, encofrado is forms or form works, and how can make a curve over the form work. I carry sand, and the sand is too easy. How can I say peinar? Comb. And it's too easy comb a beautiful curve without effort. And over the sand here, I put the bricks using in the perpendicular of the diagonal of the bricks, made in 1 centimeter more in the inertia of the structure. You can see all the very root material here, the sand over made the perfect curve, and then appear all the elements of working with an incredible liquid melt, se dice melt, masa, it's a liquid concrete. It's a for evidence thing. If you read the manual of concrete, you know exactly, you can use a lot of water, because when the water evaporates, appear some holes. and link it one holes to the other, etc., appear the opportunity of the oxygen come inside of the concrete and oxidize the bars. And that is the end of the structure because you have less and less quantity of. But here, remember, my brick is so thirsty. It's a very holy brick. That's why he drink a lot of water. And remember, down the brick have sand. That's why you put a liquid concrete and the sand and the brick take off instantly the water and then conserve of the concrete to make in Spanish is curación. La curación is the time to expand the concrete to have more grow the capacity, etc., etc. The concrete cures, curar el hormigón. That's why I use that. And when finally the horizontal up part of the violin beam appear, you can free the space and can appear there. And we start to reinventing not only single panels. We understand we can make and we can develop some cubes made even with bricks. Imagine here a wooden belt, and that's why outside of the measure of the bricks have always the same, because the bricks are artisan brick, and even the quality of the clay made 1 centimeter or less than 50 millimeter, 5 millimeters different. But if you use the contorno, the perimetry, the contour, the contour of that belt, exactly you produce the same the same box ever. And with that box, you can imagine, start to imagine relation to build new ways to make a wall there. This is the Paraguayan River, goes to Buenos Aires. Here goes to the Amazonas. This is the floating area, the place where the rivers go up and down. And here is the house of my mother. That's why it's a important house for me, because it's the place where my mother and my 8th brother and 7th brother and sisters, etc., we eat milanesas every single Saturday. Yes. Shetas?
Schnitzel. Milanesa schnitzel.
Eso. That. That. And all the doors is how many time I have? Because I can
all the time.
Yes, of course. You are done. No, estamos bien. Okay. Okay. I open all the spaces, and I use doors using the name of open it. In Spanish is aberturas, is para abrir. Aperture is to open, and that's why we can transform all the relation with normal doors. And this is the way how can my mother live here. All his furniture, etc., the place where the family eat the milanesas, the schlitzes. It's a new, and this is the ramp to go to the, and imagine the height of the bedroom of my mother. He have more than 6 meter high. That's why, because in Paraguay, we have around normally 45, 60 degrees Celsius. And that's why you can open the reduced space of the windows only by 6 a.m. and catch the fresh air antes que is begin, appear the sun. And then you close everything, waiting to the hot for all the day. And finally, you have more or less a reservoirium,
Reservoir.
a reservoir of cool air inside your, because if you only have 3 meters, 2 meters, and etc., your air is hot, is heat all the time, etc. And you imagine here the bedroom of my mother. She sleeps here, and she used all the windows exactly, precisely over the height of the bedroom to control all the neighborhood. Like this. Okay. Very simple elements, etc. Only to make some reflection about the importance of the economy and how can everything can be mixed inside of the architecture. Normally, the cost of square meters in Paraguay is around $400 each square meter. And the cost is very cheap for you, or no?
No.
No? It's
No, 400 square meter, yeah, $40 a square foot. Yeah.
okay. And the first construction, what I show you, the cost was $50 each square meter. And the cost of this house cost $115 by square meter. 3 times, 4 times less the normal cost of the zinc. And how can you do that? Stolen material and explotando la gente?
Exploiting.
And exploited the people and don't pay. No, you need to use your imagination to transform that to items. How can you build and how can you reduce the quantity of material? Or how can you build faster and how can you reduce the quantity of material? It's only 2 items, like this. The basement I transform in my escritorio, my office now.
Desks.
And the place where I take off some walls, I put these columns of these pillars. I make this pillar over the ground, and then I take and I support and I change the sense of the space, freeing that space, using the same material ever, but this is the only space only with 2 meter high, 2 meter and 25. It's exactly the height of the Corbusier, the Moulur, but it's underground. It's how can I say the inframundo in Mexican, the infra world, and that's why the temperature of that space is very low because it's underground. And that's why they don't need very high space. And even the space for the hammock to take a good siesta after the hard work, etc., etc. And I cut there, you can see, I cut the continuous of the stair here of concrete initially, and I take off that, and I produce that part of the stair, and you can hide the stair and free the space for walk, etc. Okay, another kind of I am talking about arcs and how can we imagine the arcs. Officially, you can make an arc, an orange, an orange. The precisely way to resolve the carry of the weight is the catenaric arc. Remember the section of Gaudí working with the lines, etc., and producing precisely curved catenary arcs, and then they change the sense of that and appear the resistance. Okay, if this true, you can reduce at minimum the quantity of material for the arc because you are working precisely in the line of the catenary arc. And that's why I start to make this structure. And we build that arc more or less in 3 hours, because if you put the complete brick precisely with the horizontal line, trying to, etc., you demand a lot of time. But this is a reforma, how can I say reforma? Reform, a modification of a previous project, and that's why we have a lot of material, broken material, and that's the planet pay the energy of that material to build things. How can you, because you are lazy thinking, you can use that material? Produce a preform, a form work, curve it, and use the broken bricks to make things like this. This was the first. You can see our arc is an arc no continuous. This is the second. We use the central arc using not only facing up like this, the brick, like this again, more than 25 centimeters. The problem is the incredible inertia of that cross broke the encounter of the arc and the bow, and
This winch, it's where the arch comes into the.
yes, when the arc touched the bow, they broke. And then I reduced the height of this, and I made this only with 50 centimeters, etc., and that's all. And you can see that. And even we don't know we are made in walls or we are made in furniture. We are using the material. And the material, against what can say the bricks know what he wants. You can take a brick like this and say, brick, stay here, and you live and the brick fall because the brick is stupid. Don't think nothing. It's your soul, it's your imagination, it's your soul who define what the material can produce and how can the poetry, the expression, the knowledge, the study of every single portion of the history is only a reference to break again and to rethink again what happened in that moment and how can you carry that for the present. Even to produce that single chair, the plastic chair is more or less, sorry for that, can understand. You put here the weight and it's not very comfortable because it's many straight, but everybody do more or less this. And the problem is the leg broke. And the break low because they don't have inertia here in the middle. But if I cut the portion of the brick of the stair there, and I use the portion of this portion to reinforce the sitting there, you can change the position of the chair, and now you can use an industrial material, reducing the height of the section and symbolize the real comfort using every single material, every single opportunity to rethink the structure, the material, the capacity of it. We developed the boxes, but this was a giant test, a giant path, because we transformed first the box now in a triangular box. And you can see here all the prefabrication, you see? And with that prefabricated triangular square between one and the other, we use the reinforcement because now I have more than 15 centimeters, and now I can put the reinforcement, the metal bars, and I can cover with concrete there, and I can make this kind of space. And another other day, because the time goes, and this is the hydrotherapy, and only this part have concrete because all the weight when come here is impossible for the brick satisfy the and can explode the material. And against that wall, they have 4 centimeters more of concrete, and they use all the pyramid, the inverse pyramid to collect the water, etc., etc. And you can see the size of the zigzag of the wall, only 4 centimeters again, and more than 8 meters high, only to capture. And now imagine, not only this is a therapy, a hydrotherapy space. That's why the water need to be hot, and they use a lot of chemicals. And that's why if you use a standard space, you can asphyxiate, you can breathe. You can breathe there. And we can use this kind of inverse pyramid like trees, working in the space, capturing the, etc., etc. Things like this. And the space to produce shadows in front of the construction in the west side, the worst time of the sun, we invent this both, only to produce shadows. It's not, of course, they are not necessary, but of course it's very necessary. But more important than the shadow, even you can see the difference between this bulb and the other bulb, because we all the time try to develop new opportunities. And that's why we use another proportion, another way to resolve, another is every time is opportunity to reflect about the construction, the reflect about the, for us is more easy, take one and copy again, copy paste is no, exactly, we know exactly which problem we have here, how can we, and the next one can be different and different and different. That's why is this, in 10 days, we made this counter, this form, like this, these are the bars, and we carry this prefabricated here, and we put one and another, not triangle, because to Venice is very difficult. Use a big triangle, and we build in less than 5 days all of this, and when we lift up all the forms, the jury appear in that space, and only we make some marks, etc., to show the process and how can and the name of this was, and the name of this is not an arc, because it's a bar structure, rectilinear bar structure, curved to reduce the quantity of the precise line of the catenaric arc. But it's a bar, it's a structure of bar of bricks, because normally we use the bricks only like surfaces, and we don't think the opportunity of the bricks like a bar. It's an extraordinary change of point of view. And now to use the less quantity of material, because nobody knows the capacity of the resistance of the ground in Venice, we only can use 1,872 bricks, because that is the commissioner of of historic patrimony of Venice authorized, authorized to build here. And that's when we free appear that space more than 8 meters, more than 10 meters, more than that, but it's not an arc. It's a bar structure, curved. And appear one of our friends from here, of course, Louis Kahn, and now imagine what I learned about Frank Lloyd Wright when he made the desert concrete, the concrete of the desert. They use what they have. They don't have money to make the oak part details made in the line, the little shadow, one particular piece to produce. They don't have money. They don't have nothing. There was in the middle of the desert. Oh, here only have stone. Okay, keep all the stone. How can we make? We can make some forms. We can put there the stones. We can live inside the concrete, etc., etc. And you can see here how can work the stone, the reference of the, etc. It's a beautiful way to think. That's why we not only use the opportunity of the fragment in a transformation of a previous architecture, we can buy broken material. We can buy a demolition process. And with that element, we can produce this kind of panels, of course. And with this kind of panel, we can make this kind of structure. And with the structure and with the same idea, we make this slab and the beam working exactly with the same definition, with his needs, with the demands of needs. That's why here they have one column, and here atrás, behind this coconut, we have another column. And the problem is here to here, we have more than 12 meters free. And that's why here we have a beam carried on this column. We have another beam here carrying on this column. And the problem is here. How can we support that? And we use the counterbalance to make this, sorry, and to support the beam there. We use the counterbalance to freeing the column there. And that's why we can make this kind of spaces. Everything made by broken bricks using only the concrete in the middle between one triangle and another, and over the principal beams carry the frontal structure that way, like this. It's El Quincho de Tiacoral is a place to exchange ceremony, like you take an animal, you kill, and with the blood, etc., of the animal, you carry that for the fire, and you cook slowly and eat an amazing barbecue. Sorry. Okay, I transform some. We have time. I can cut when you want. Are you tired? I can continue. Yes. Okay. This is the transformation of an ancient house, a small house in the center of Asunción. They was then office, and then final a foundation of art called us to make space art like this. And I lift up all the walls, I free all the space, and I use this kind of a structure only with this other section, like this and like this, and cross another one in here and in here. That's why, because I put here one column, And if I concentrate all the effort of that space, I need make a big foundation here. And that's why I need to break all the grounds, the ancient grounds, and other here, and other there, and other here, etc., etc. But if I use the structure like a spider, equilibrating the effort, if distributing not only in one column, two column, in four column, and works like this, I can reduce and I can use the pre-state of the foundation without compromise, a structural compromise. And I prefabricate all the sides of the wall, imagining, yes, imagine the composition for many pictures, etc., etc. You can see there, and the space, and even for a big door, you can use usually a central structure and then two plywood laminas. And I changed that. I put one single lamina, one single plywood in the middle, and the structure by side, one to the other. And that's why you reduce the quantity of structure, etc., etc. And to open that door, for example, I use an extraordinary sophisticated mechanism like this. Because it's enough. You don't need nothing more than that. And okay. And imagine the space and sorry, you can see every single time of the ancient structure, seeing the tiles of the ground and seeing the place for the walls, etc. The ground tell the history. And you can see here, this is against the form work. That's why I have more or less 2 or 3 millimeters. And this is how can you work in front of the form work. And you can see all the complexity of nothing. And how can you change everything, touching with a lot of respect, things what don't have originally dignity, because they are no very sophisticated architecture. But if you use your imagination and if you can transform everything. And thinking in the concrete of the desert and how can you use the etc. the same material here in the center of Paris, because of course the industry of France have a lot to say to this moment, to prefabricate panels, to sophisticate. But if you see all the time surrounding the city, they have a lot of people doing nothing. Because to build today, you need a level of study to use precisely tools, etc., etc. And the new people in the city, the migrants, for violence, for poverty, for policy, for politics things, for war, for female violence, etc., etc., don't have opportunity to work. But, and we invent machine in the ETH to take the brick and put over and two glue of concrete and transport there and put amazing. But every single human have in his hand a more sophisticated tool to resolve everything, because we can make supination, pronation, translation, and rotation. But to use that, we need to change our form to produce project. Not only make the definition of some spaces and then come the engineers to resolve your problems. Start to understand their works can be produced for the people and using the trash material, using the not necessary material, and put that piece in the middle of Cartier Foundation and show and explain for everybody how can you work with panel, prefabricated panel, using not, of course, this is impossible for a normal concrete. And we need to reduce the quantity of concrete, but we use high level of concrete using polymers, using graphene fibers, not more bars, graphene fibers, plastic fiber, etc., using the best condition of our construction, mixing with the handmade of the people. And now we can make this beauty. It's not only a wall, it's a dancing wall. Only to explain, because imagine, everybody say, oh, okay, Solano can make everything in Paraguay because in Paraguay they don't have earthquakes. But here in Mexico, it's impossible. Here in Chile, it's impossible. Here in that part of Los Andes, it's impossible. The structure of Venice is an earthquake territory. And even inside of a patrimony, architectural patrimony inside of Venice. And here, in the middle of the Jean Nouvel building, of course, Paris has the same tools, the same rules for earthquakes. And make appear is a dancing wall, but exactly the position of the panel define and produce they are produced against the earthquakes movement, and that's why I can reduce everything, and that's why I can show even for people who live under earthquakes territories, opportunities to rethink the project. Other day I can explain you that. Finally, another, when this house we don't go to see, but the next time. I made many things thinking again on and how can I show you I talk I show you the link between some ideas about the modern, this about the Romans people, about the history, etc., to redefine, to catapultar, to catapult by the future new ways to think. Well, I made some wall using broken bricks, but the difference between the other broken bricks and this, I produce here no cooked bricks. I take some portion of clay, I mix with sand, I make not a strong structure, it's very softly like this, but it's possible to use like this and put all the concrete. And then I come with a hydro power washer, and I lift up all the no cooked bricks, and I can make this and have exactly and the precisely quantity of a square meter of the Mies van der Rohe house of the, and I can say for Lord Palumbo, who bought the Farnsworth house, he really loved our way to resolve things with our materials, and cost exactly have exactly the same cost, more or less $75,000 cost the Farnsworth house for Edith Farnsworth in 1951. And in 2019 or 18, codes exactly the same square. But the Farnsworth house now it costs $7 million, etc., etc. But for us, it's impossible imagine a house like Farnsworth, everything in glass. It's only a stuff, un horno,
Oven, oven,
oven.
oven.
Oven. It's only an oven for us. It's impossible to make that quantity, but we can make everything in glass. But if we make in front the shadow, and we can use everything and works with the shadow and etc., exactly and precisely the same structure, and to transform the way of view, the exterior wall is painted by white. And that's why you can imagine in front of a supermarket, you can see, for example, the propaganda, the advertising of something, Pepsi, Coke, everything. But inside is absolutely transparent. You know that kind of, how can define? Es un plástico que se pega, que desde afuera se ve la propaganda, pero de adentro es transparente.
It's it's a one-way film. So you can look out of the one-way film, but from the outside you see a color or a pattern or something that doesn't let you look inside. A one-way film.
That is incredible, my health thing. And that's why we paint that in white and in blue inside. Inside is absolutely transparent. You can see here. But outside, the same structure, I'm sorry, it's absolutely like day. Sorry. These are a new picture. That's why they have. You can see it's absolutely impossible to see. And even the proportion is interesting because you see here the column, but one column is 2 columns in front and 2 columns by side. And that's why have exactly the same proportion of the Farnsworth house, etc., etc., even using concrete, because it's too easy works with that proportion with steel. It's the same thing. In Paraguay, everybody tried to make like Frank Lloyd Wright, the Robbie house, but make that structure with wood, with ceramic tile, a lot of weight. It's impossible to make that counterbalance. But you can use your imagination to show something and hide others, etc. We don't have more time. I can reduce, I have 2 or 3 more projects like this, sorry. Or in Mexico, I want to show you for you. In Mexico, finally, because I really start to understand a rule developed by Le Corbusier, because the first airplane journey of Le Corbusier, he made in a trajectory between Buenos Aires and Asunción. And for first time, he kept an airplane, and the name of the pilot was Etienne de Saint-Exupéry, and he comes to Paraguay and returned to Buenos Aires again. And he defined the loi du méandre, la ley del meandro, the law of the meander. The important thing is imagine the A point to the B point. Initially, the process is absolutely confused, etc. But the important thing is imagine the link between A and B. And with the time, the cross of the time and the return, they start to be aligned. And that's why the proportion, the ideas, etc., the important thing is your compromise. And this square is It's Casawabi. Casawabi is a kind of foundation where Tadao Ando made the master plan and the house. Alvaro Sisa made the place for the ceramic. Alberto Kalash made the gardens. Ken Gokuma made the place for the chickens. And I was invited to do the compost pavilion. Compost pavilion. And that's why I imagine a square and I imagine that kind of structure using in my head, I imagine all the drunkards, Mexican people crashing against the column in the street, etc., etc. And that's why the single problem of the column is right here in the tobillo, ankle, in the ankle. But the rest of the column is absolutely perfect. And that's why I designed all the structure using that reused column, etc., to make the structure. And I made finally a curtain wall in the exactly sentence of the name. It's a hanging structure. I made this with iron bars like this, like this, like this, like this, and the other comes here, 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 and etc. And then I prefabricate that element, and I hang here, 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 and here. And that's why in the earthquake situation, and even because it's in the coast, the ceramic coating only freeing the energy of the rain, the elements producing this. And finally, this is a project I did for the end, because this project demands for me 10 years to do. 10 years I need for imagine one single square. Only to show you how stupid I am. And I imagine a square more or less have 9 meters every side of the square, and every side of the square was defined for a beam and one single column. And that's why here appears the column, this is the basement, and this is the beam. And the beam has some voladizo, some cantilever, more than around 8 meters here, or 7.5 and 1.5 meters, etc., to resolve the problem. And when was finished the construction of the 4 beams, we recover the beams inside of the square with mirrors and disappear. You can see there, here, the mirror. Now there is the beam, and you can circulate around and use that space to be inside of the beam. You can and disappear all the definition of the exterior when you make a single path inside of the square disappear. And it's incredible because you are seeing in the mirror and you are carrying the outside space to the interior space with you, because the height of the beam is more or less the height of the, ¿cómo se dice? Baranda, handrail, the handrail. That's why they find that, and you don't see you in the mirror. You only see the space and part of you. But in a moment, you take seat in the middle of the square, by side another concrete construction. The concrete construction in the middle of this square is the tomb of my father. My father said me, Solano, I want to be buried here in this place. I choose this place. And I really want to, you made the space for my rest, my, my, that bad. I don't know how can traduce that. Sorry for my rude. And sit, when you sit by side of the place of the tongue, you are inside of the game of the mirrors. And now the space, the initial centripetal space now is centrifugal because the space start to open and open and open and open, repeat, 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 repeat. Even you can see the flowers outside of the box, inside of the box, inside of the square. And everybody can imagine, of course, why you use mirror, because the mirror is the tool for the narcissism. In the mirror, I show me, I see me, and I say, oh, how beautiful I am, etc., etc. But in the mirror, I have some, I encontré, I found some exception because I live inside of me and my own body is the limit between me, inside of me, and everything outside of me. But in the mirror, the exception is because I am there, out of me. Finally, in an equality surfaces with everything around, no hierarchy. I'm not the different. I'm not in a hierarchy position inside of me. Now I am part of everything. And now I can live in another spaces. And now I can see other surfaces where I can exist. And now imagine here is the beam. And this is the reflection of this beam goes there. And you can start to play with the mirror and understand how many times you can live there and there and there. Perhaps in the mirror you have the opportunity to live with your beloved your close beloved people, because the obscenity of the death carry out of you. You are now lonely, but we can live together in the mirror. We can encontrarnos,
find each other.
Pero de salir y encontrarnos, all together, in that space. Even if I don't see, because I see how can my own image go free to search everything, or with the impossible loves, because we don't discover the space or the time to be possible their relation. That's why this is a common day for my, because when I use 10 years because I read a lot of architecture and how can the human beings be in front of the circumstance of the death around the history, the Pantheon, barrier, chapels, church, many, even the, how can say the, in India, no, the temple of the love, sorry, because Mumtaz Mahal, the Taj Mahal, okay, the place who the Shah Jahan made for his dead love, and etc., etc. And all of this for me was not enough, because I imagine my children saying, "Ooh, there are the grand barbarians and all the ceremony of that. But I made a space to everybody go there to play, and someone be outside of the beam and use his own body of the reflection of the other, use the hands, the head, the foot, etc., to rearm imagine and people. And this is a normal day. This is my mother cleaning the mirrors, and all my children, my nephews, etc., in that place. And this is my son Solanito, my oldest son. Now is an architect, and have an extraordinary work too, etc. And here control me and know exactly what I'm doing using the mirror in the moment when I take the picture. And here he have the foot over the ground, and here he floating in like in my dreams, like he ever every single of my children like Madera, like Gala and Solanito live in my heart. Thank you very much. This is the last.